My son threw a party at his new house and forgot to invite me. When I called him, all dressed up and asking for the address, he replied, "The party was yesterday, Mom. I forgot to tell you, I had spent a week preparing my special lasagna, bought a gift, and got dressed up as if I were going to a wedding. All to hear that I wasn't important enough to be there." 3 weeks later, he called me crying, desperate, begging for $50,000. That was when he discovered that I also know how to forget to mention certain things. But before we continue, check if you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories travel. My name is Eleanor. I'm 68 years old, and my whole life I've taken pride in 2 things: my family and my restaurant. Eleanor's Table isn't one of those fancy places with unpronounceable French names, but for 35 years, it was the heartbeat of the neighborhood. Home cooking, a mother's touch, the kind of place where everyone feels at home. That was where I raised my son, Caleb, all on my own after my husband walked out on us when the boy was just 3 years old. Caleb was always my pride and joy. He went to public school, got into a good state university for business, and even got his MBA. Today, at 42, he works for a multinational corporation, makes good money, and lives in one of those gated communities in the suburbs, the kind with 24-hour security and private gyms. He married Sarah, a pretty girl who works in marketing. She always treated me politely, but it was that cold kind of polite, you know, like I was a social obligation she had to check off a list. On Thursday of last week, I was at the restaurant building, which is now just my home since I sold the business, when Caleb called. I was happy because lately he only showed up when he needed something or on holidays. His voice sounded upbeat. "Mom, we finally did it. We bought the dream house Sarah wanted." I felt my heart squeeze with emotion. "That's wonderful, son. When do I get to see it?" Soon. We're planning a housewarming party. It's going to be special." I hung up the phone with a smile on my face. A housewarming party. I immediately started planning what I would bring. My son always loved my eggplant lasagna, that recipe I learned from my mother and perfected over the years. It would be perfect for the occasion. I spent the next few days in prep mode. I bought the best ingredients. I picked out eggplants that were firm and shiny at the farmer's market. I used the tomato sauce that I let simmer for hours until it reaches that perfect point. I made 3 large casserole dishes because lots of people always go to housewarming parties, and I wanted there to be leftovers. I wanted my son's friends to taste it and say, "What a wonderful mother you have, Caleb." On Friday, I stopped by the department store and bought a set of plush bath towels as a gift. Nothing too expensive, because my pension from the restaurant sale is modest, but they were beautiful towels, high quality, in neutral tones that match any decor. I wrapped them with care and added a gold ribbon. Saturday morning, I woke up early. I took a shower, did my hair in that salon style I only do for special occasions. I put on my navy blue pantsuit, the one I always wear when I want to look presentable. I applied a soft lipstick and put on my pearl necklace costume jewelry, but elegant. I looked in the mirror and thought, I look good for my age. I packed the lasagna trays in thermal carriers to keep them hot. I grabbed the gift. I called an Uber because Caleb lives far out in the suburbs, and I haven't driven on the highway in a few years. While the car crossed the city, I was imagining the party. Maybe there would be balloons or string lights in the backyard. I imagined my son introducing me to his friends. "This is my mom, Eleanor, the owner of the best restaurant in town." It was almost noon when I called Caleb. My voice was cheerful. "Son, I'm on my way." "How long until I should get there?" There was silence on the other end. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. "Mom, on your way from where?" "From home, honey. I'm coming to the housewarming party. I made lasagna. I have a gift." Another silence. Then his voice came out differently, less animated, almost irritated. "Mom, the party was yesterday." The world seemed to stop. The noise of the traffic disappeared. I felt my stomach turn. "What do you mean it was yesterday? You didn't tell me when it was." "I forgot to tell you, Mom. It was such a rush. We organized everything last minute." He forgot. The word echoed in my head like a funeral bell. He forgot to tell his own mother. He forgot I existed. I looked at the thermal bags next to me on the car seat, the gift wrapped with love. I looked at my clothes, my done-up hair. But, son, I spent the whole week preparing. Mom, for the love of God, don't make a scene. Put the lasagna in the freezer and eat it later. And honestly, it was better this way. Better this way? The words hit me like a slap in the face. Why was it better this way, Caleb? He sighed. That sigh of impatience people use when dealing with something inconvenient. Because it was a more select crowd. You know, Sarah's colleagues, some important clients of mine, influential people. The conversation was at a different level. You would have felt out of place, Mom. You'd have run out of things to talk about. It would have been embarrassing. Embarrassing. Me, who raised this man alone. Me, who worked double shifts to pay for his education. Me, who sold family heirlooms to pay for his private university tuition. I would be embarrassing to him. I understand, was all I managed to say. Don't get mad, Mom. We'll schedule a lunch at your place later. Just us, nice and quiet. I have to go now. I'm nursing a hangover. Bye. He hung up. He didn't even wait for me to respond. I sat there, holding the cell phone, listening to the silence of the dead line. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror. Does the lady still want to go to the address? Or do you want to head back? I swallowed the cry that wanted to escape. You can head back. The ride back was the longest of my life. Every red light seemed to last an eternity. I looked out the window without seeing anything, just feeling the humiliation burning inside. When I got home, I tipped the driver and went up with my boxes and my useless gift. I shoved the lasagna in the freezer, put the gift in the closet, sat on the living room sofa still dressed up, still wearing makeup, and let the tears flow. I cried for the party I didn't go to, for the importance I didn't have, for the son who was ashamed of me. The following week dragged on like an open wound. I continued my routine. Wake up, make coffee, water the plants, watch TV. But everything seemed colorless, tasteless. It was as if that phone call had turned something off inside me. It wasn't just the sadness of being excluded. It was the painful realization that I had become irrelevant in my own son's life. On Wednesday, I was watering my violets when my cell phone rang. It was Caleb. My first impulse was not to answer, but the force of the maternal habit spoke louder. I picked up on the third ring. Hello, Mom. His voice sounded strange, tense, almost desperate. Hello, Caleb. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Important. That word suddenly had a bitter taste in my mouth. Important was the party with influential people. I wasn't important. Can you talk? It's hard over the phone. Can I come over right now? I looked at my simple house, my older furniture, my old TV that I refused to replace. Was my house embarrassing too? You can come. He arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was shocked. Caleb was pale, with deep dark circles under his eyes, his tie loosened. He didn't look like the confident executive he usually was. He looked like a scared little boy. Come in. He walked in and threw himself onto the sofa, running his hands over his face several times. I remained standing, waiting. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer anything. I just waited. Mom, I ruined everything. What did you do? He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. Do you remember that investment I mentioned a few months ago? The partnership in a tech startup? I remembered vaguely. Caleb had mentioned something about a unique opportunity, a revolutionary business. I remember. I went in heavy on it. Really heavy. I took out loans. I used our reserves. I convinced Sarah to put in her savings too. It was guaranteed. Mom, the guy who pitched the business was friends with a director at my company. He had an MBA from Harvard. I felt a shiver down my spine. When someone starts a sentence with, "it was guaranteed," it usually ends in disaster. And the company was a fraud, a Ponzi scheme. The owner disappeared with everyone's money. We found out last week. We're all suing, but the lawyer said the chances of recovering anything are minimal. I closed my eyes. How much did you lose? $200,000. I felt my legs go weak. I sat in the armchair across from him. $200,000? Yes, and there's more. I borrowed part of that money from a private investment fund. The balloon payment is due next week. If I don't pay, they're going to execute the collateral. What collateral? The new house. He lowered his head. I put the house up as collateral. I thought I was going to double the money in 6 months and pay it all off. Now I'm going to lose the house, Mom. Sarah is in a panic. She's talking about separation. Everything is falling apart. I remained silent, processing. The luxurious party where I wasn't important enough to attend had been paid for with borrowed money that was now threatening to destroy his life. How much do you need to not lose the house? He looked up, and I saw hope there. Hope that the embarrassing mother could save the situation. $50,000. If I can come up with $50,000 before Friday, I can renegotiate the rest. $50,000. A fortune. But I knew I had that money. I had exactly $75,000 saved. It was the money from the sale of the restaurant, my only financial security, my cushion for emergencies, for health, for my old age. Caleb looked at me with those eyes I had known since he was a baby, the same eyes that looked at me when he was afraid of the dark, when he scraped his knee at the park, when he needed me. Mom, I know I have no moral ground to ask you this. I know I was an idiot to you last week, but you're the only person who can help me. I promise I'll pay you back, with interest. As soon as I reorganized my life, I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the day was gray. A few drops of rain were starting to fall. Let me think about it, Caleb. It's a lot of money. I know, Mom, but it's urgent. I need an answer by tomorrow so I can make the wire transfer before the deadline. He stood up and came towards me. He put his hand on my shoulder. Mom, please. I'm begging you. I turned and looked at him. I saw the desperation, the fear, the vulnerability. But I also saw the man who had found me embarrassing a week ago. The man who forgot to invite me to the party that was paid for with borrowed money. I'll think about it carefully, son. I'll give you the answer tomorrow. I saw frustration cross his face. He wanted the answer now. He wanted the immediate yes I had always given him his whole life. Okay, tomorrow then. But please, think with your heart, Mom. I'm your son. After he left, I sat down again. I stayed there, in the quiet living room, thinking about the injustice, the ingratitude, the ease with which people discard those they love when it's inconvenient, but run back when they're in need. I spent the whole night awake. I got up several times. I went to the kitchen. I drank water. I paced around the house. My mind was a whirlwind of contradictory thoughts. On one side, the maternal instinct screaming to save my son. On the other, the pain of rejection still fresh, still burning. At 5 a.m, I gave up on sleeping. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. It was there, at that old table where Caleb had done his homework throughout his childhood, that I made my decision. It wouldn't be an emotional decision. It would be a thoughtful, strategic decision. If Caleb could treat business like business, so could I. I called him at 9 a.m. He answered on the first ring. Mom? Good morning, Caleb. I thought about your request. I heard his breathing change, become faster. And I'm going to help you, but with conditions. Conditions? What conditions? I'm not going to simply give you the money or lend it to you just like that. I'm going to buy equity in your life. I'm going to invest in you as a partner, not as a mother. There was a confused silence on the other end. What do you mean, partner? You need $50,000. I have that money. But in exchange, I want you to sign a contract with me. A contract that guarantees me an active voice in your major financial decisions for the next 5 years. Any investment over $2,000, you consult me first. Any loan, you consult me. We're going together to my lawyer today to draw up the document. Mom, that's ridiculous. I'm a grown man who lost 200 grand in a fraud because he didn't know how to assess risk. A grown man who is about to lose his house. Either you accept my conditions, or you look for the money elsewhere. I could feel his anger through the phone. You're taking advantage of my situation. No, Caleb, I'm protecting my investment. If you were asking a bank for money, you'd have to provide collateral and accept conditions. With me, it's no different. But you're my mother. Exactly. And because I'm your mother, I can't watch you destroy yourself financially out of impulse and arrogance. Those are my conditions. Do you accept or not? He remained silent for long seconds. I could imagine the internal battle, the wounded pride fighting against the urgent need. Fine, he finally said, his voice dry. When are we going to the lawyer? Today at 3. I'll text you the address. I hung up and took a deep breath. My hand was shaking. It wasn't easy to be tough with my own son, but it was necessary. I called Mr. Henderson, my old lawyer who had handled the sale of the restaurant. "Eleanor, what a nice surprise. How are you?" "I'm well, Mr. Henderson. I need an urgent favor. I need a loan agreement with specific clauses for this afternoon." I explained the situation. Mr. Henderson, who had known me for decades, showed no surprise. "I understand perfectly. I'll draft a solid document. You can come at 3. It will be ready." At 3 o'clock sharp, I was in Mr. Henderson's office. Caleb arrived 15 minutes late, looking grim. He greeted the lawyer coldly and sat in the chair furthest from me. Mr. Henderson, a gentleman with white hair and reading glasses, began to read the contract aloud. With every clause, I saw Caleb's jaw tighten. Clause 3. The borrower agrees to submit any investment decision exceeding $2,000 to the lender's prior approval. Clause 5. In the event of non-compliance with the established conditions, the total value of the loan becomes immediately due, with penalty interest of 2% per month. Clause 7. The borrower agrees to submit monthly financial reports to the lender, including bank statements and investment portfolios. When Mr. Henderson finished, Caleb was flushed red. "This is humiliating, Mom. You're treating me like an irresponsible child." I looked at him without blinking. "You acted like an irresponsible child. You invested your new house money in a scheme that anyone with a minimum of caution would have identified as suspicious. This is the consequence. Either you sign, or you find the $50,000 somewhere else." He gripped the pen tightly, almost snapping it. He signed with sharp, jerky movements, almost tearing the paper. I signed right after, calmly. "I'm initiating the wire transfer now," I said, taking out my phone. While I typed the numbers, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction for finally setting boundaries, for no longer being the mother who just gave without receiving anything in return. Sadness because we had reached this point. The transfer was confirmed. $50,000 leaving my account. My security, my future, going to save the son who was ashamed of me. Caleb checked his phone. He saw the money hit his account. He stood up without saying anything. "Thanks," he muttered, avoiding my gaze. "You're welcome. I expect the first financial report on the 30th. He left without saying goodbye. Mr. Henderson looked at me gently. "You did the right thing, Eleanor. Love without boundaries becomes enabling." "I know, Mr. Henderson. It just hurts too much." The following days were silent. Caleb didn't call, didn't send a text. It was as if, having gotten the money, I had become unnecessary again. But I had the contract. I had the signed document. Now it was a waiting game. On the 30th, as established, I waited for the financial report. Nothing. I waited until 8 at night. Silence. I grabbed the phone and called. "Hello, Mom." "Caleb, today is the 30th. Where is the report?" "What report?" "The financial report you agreed to send. It's in the contract you signed." I heard a sigh of irritation. "Mom, I'm busy. I have more important things to do than sending you bank statements." I felt the anger rise. Hot and strong. More important than honoring a legal contract you signed? "Caleb, I am not playing games. Either you send it by noon tomorrow, or I trigger the default clause." "You wouldn't do that. Do you want to bet?" I hung up before he could respond. My hand was trembling. I immediately called Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Henderson? He's already in breach of the first clause. What do we do?" "Calm down, Eleanor. Give him one more grace period. Send a formal notification via text with a copy of the contract attached. If he doesn't comply in 48 hours, then we move to more serious measures." I did as he instructed. I wrote a formal message, attached the contract, set the 48-hour deadline, and hit send. Caleb saw it immediately, but didn't reply. They were the tensest 48 hours of my life. I had given my own son an ultimatum. Part of me wished he would comply, to prove he had learned. Another part almost expected the breach, just to confirm how much he disrespected me. On the morning of the second day, at 11:47 a.m., I received an email. It was from Caleb. Attachments, bank statements, payment receipts, a simple spreadsheet of income and expenses. No message, just the documents. I opened the files with a tight heart. I analyzed everything carefully. His finances were tight but organized. No new risky investments. He was paying bills on time, controlling expenses. For the first time in months, things seemed to be in order. I replied to the email. Documents received and approved. Keep it up. There was no response. Months went by. Every 30th of the month, the report arrived. Always without a message. Always just the numbers. I analyzed everything. Sometimes I found something questionable, an expensive dinner, an unnecessary purchase, and I flagged it. Caleb corrected it without arguing. It was a strange relationship. We were mother and son reduced to numbers on spreadsheets, to bank statements, to contractual clauses. We didn't talk about other things. He didn't ask how I was. I didn't tell him about my life. Just business. In December, 3 months after the loan, I received a call from him. It was a Friday night. Mom, I need to talk to you. My heart raced. What now? I'm listening. In person. Can I stop by tomorrow morning? You can. I hung up, intrigued and worried. I spent the night imagining scenarios. Had he gotten into another mess? Did he want more money? Was he coming to break the contract? Saturday arrived at 10 in the morning, but something was different. He didn't look desperate or irritated. He looked calm. Come in. He entered and sat on the sofa. He was holding a briefcase. Mom, these last 3 months were the worst and the best of my life. I stayed silent, waiting. Worse because I had to swallow my pride every day. Because having to answer to my own mother made me feel like a failure. Because Sarah almost left me when she found out about the contract. He paused, took a deep breath. But they were also the best because, for the first time in my adult life, I understood the value of money. I understood that it's not about how much you make, but how you manage it. I understood that every dollar has a weight, a responsibility. He opened the briefcase and took out some papers. I came to show you something. In the last 3 months, I cut all superfluous expenses. I canceled club memberships I wasn't even using. I stopped eating out every day. I started brown bagging lunch to work. I'm even using those recipes you taught me when I was a kid. He smiled for the first time in months. I managed to save $15,000. $15,000, Mom, and I want to pay it back to you. He extended an envelope. Inside, a check for $15,000. I stared at the check, unable to process it. Caleb, I don't want you to think I only look for you when I need something. I want to prove I learned, that I can be responsible, that I deserve your trust. I took the check with trembling hands. You didn't need to do this now. The contract doesn't require early repayment. I know, but I need to do this for me. I need to prove to myself that I'm capable. I looked at my son and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine humility. I put the check in my purse and looked at Caleb. There was something different about him, besides the humility. He seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Sit down, son. I'm going to make coffee. I went to the kitchen and made coffee the way he always liked it, strong and black. When I came back with the mugs, he was looking at the old photos on the wall. Photos of him as a boy, of me, of the restaurant. Mom, I owe you an apology. I sat in the armchair across from him and waited. That day of the party, what I said was unforgivable. You were never embarrassing. I was the one who was embarrassed. Ashamed to admit that everything I had achieved came from your effort. I wanted to look like a self-made man in front of those people. I wanted them to think I built everything alone. He took a sip of coffee, and I saw his eyes water. But the truth is, without you, I would be nothing. It was you who paid for my college by selling the restaurant you loved. It was you who supported me when I wanted to get my master's. It was you who always believed in me, even when I didn't deserve it. And yet you left me out of your party, I replied softly. And yet I left you out, he repeated, lowering his head. Because I was ashamed of you. Ashamed of the strongest, most dignified, and honest woman I've ever met. How could I be such an idiot? He covered his face with his hands. I saw his shoulders shaking. My son was crying. I got up and went to him. I sat next to him and put my hand on his back, just like I did when he was little and woke up from a nightmare. We made mistakes, Caleb. I made mistakes too. He lifted his face, surprised. How did you make mistakes? I protected you too much. I gave you everything too easily. I never taught you how to deal with frustration, with limits. I turned you into a man who didn't know how to say no to himself. And when you fell, instead of helping you up, I judged you. But you were right to judge me. You were right to demand responsibility. But I could have done it differently. That contract, all that formality. I didn't do it just to teach you. I did it to get revenge too. To make you feel what I felt when you excluded me. Caleb looked at me intensely. And did it work? I thought before answering. I don't know. It gave me some satisfaction at first to see you have to report to me. But then it just left me sad. Because we turned our relationship into financial transactions. We became spreadsheets and contracts instead of mother and son. We sat in silence for a moment, just sitting side by side, listening to the wall clock tick away the seconds. Can we start over? He asked. We can try. Caleb reached for his briefcase again and pulled out another document. I brought this for you. It was an invitation. A formal invitation, printed on heavy cardstock with gold lettering. I opened it and read, You are invited to the Mendez family Christmas dinner. Date, December 24th. Time, 7 p.m. Location, family residence. Dress code, formal. Special guest of honor, Eleanor Mendez. I felt my chin tremble. It's a small party this time, he explained. Just real family. Me, Sarah, you, her parents. No clients, no important people. Only the people who really matter. I'm the special guest of honor? Yes, because you are. And because I want everyone to know it, including me. I hugged my son tightly. For the first time in months, we weren't creditor and debtor. We were just mother and son. I'll be there, I whispered. When Caleb left, I stood there holding the invitation. I looked at the check he had given me. $15,000. He didn't need to have done that. He could have saved the money, used it for other things. But he wanted to prove something to me. I grabbed my cell phone and called Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, I need to amend the contract with my son. Which part? I want to reduce the supervision period from 5 years to 2, and I want to open an exception so he can make investments of up to $5,000 without my approval, provided he presents a risk analysis. Mr. Henderson was silent for a few seconds. Are you sure? It's only been 3 months. I am. He proved he's learning, and I need to show that I trust him. All right, I'll prepare a contract addendum. Do you want me to send it over for both of you to sign? Yes, please. That night, I received the draft of the addendum via email. I printed it, signed it, and took a picture. I texted it to Caleb with a message. I signed my part of the new agreement. When you can, sign yours. I'm proud of you, son. 3 little dots appeared, indicating he was typing. Then, they disappeared, appeared again, disappeared. Finally, the message arrived. Thanks, Mom, for everything. I love you. 3 little words I hadn't heard in so long I had forgotten how good they felt. The days before Christmas were different. Caleb started calling me, not to talk about money or reports, but just to chat. He asked how my day was. He talked about his work, small things, but they meant the world to me. A week before Christmas, he showed up at my house unannounced. He was carrying grocery bags. I came for you to help me make that eggplant lasagna. I want to learn the recipe properly. We spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen. I taught him every step, how to pick the eggplants, the exact consistency of the sauce, the precise amount of cheese. He took notes on everything in a little notebook, focused like when he did his school homework. Why did you never teach me this before? He asked while assembling the layers. You never asked. You were always too busy. That's true. I was always chasing things I thought were important. Money, status, impressing people. And I let the things that really matter slip by. We baked the lasagna together. The smell invaded the house, bringing back memories of when he was a boy and would stand in the kitchen with me, waiting anxiously to taste it. You know what I realized in these last few months? He said while we waited for it to cool. All that expensive lifestyle I was living didn't make me happy. It was all appearances. I lived stressed, in debt, trying to keep up a facade. Now, with less money but more control, I sleep better. I have peace. Money isn't bad, Caleb. What's bad is when you live for it, instead of making it live for you. We ate the lasagna right there, at my old table. He ate 2 huge slices and declared it was almost at the level of mine. Almost? I joked. Okay, it's equal. But I'll never admit that publicly, or you'll get conceited. We laughed together. How long had it been since we laughed together? When he left, taking half the lasagna for Sarah, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. My son was coming back, not the perfect son I idealized, but the real son, with flaws and strengths, but present. On the 24th, I woke up nervous. It was the first time I would visit his new house. The house they had almost lost, the one I had helped save. I put on my navy blue dress again, but this time with a different feeling. It wasn't anxious hope, it was genuine expectation of a good moment. I arrived at 7 o'clock sharp. Caleb opened the door with a wide smile. Welcome, Mom. Finally. The house was beautiful, but not ostentatious. Decorated with good taste, but without exaggeration. Sarah came to greet me, and for the first time, I saw sincerity in her smile. Eleanor, I'm so glad you came. Caleb hasn't stopped talking about this all week. Her parents were nice. The dinner was lovely, with a simply decorated table set with care. And in the center of the table, in the place of honor, was my eggplant lasagna. Main course, Caleb announced proudly. Made by the best cook I know. During dinner, we talked about everything. About plans for the next year, about simple trips they wanted to take. About life. Nobody mentioned money, investments, or status. It was just a family gathered together. After dinner, Caleb asked for everyone's attention. He wanted to make a toast. This year was hard. I made terrible mistakes. I almost lost everything. The house, my marriage, my relationship with my mother. But I learned that sometimes you need to lose everything to understand what's really worth it. He raised his glass and looked at me. Mom, you saved me. Not just with the money, but by forcing me to grow up, to be responsible, to understand that I'm not better than anyone else, that success isn't measured by how much you make, but by your integrity. Thank you for not giving up on me. Everyone toasted. I tried to hold back the tears, but it was useless. Later, when Caleb's in-laws left and Sarah went to the kitchen, he took me on a tour of the house. He showed every room with pride, but a different kind of pride. It wasn't the pride of someone trying to impress, but of someone who genuinely loves where they live. Come here, I want to show you something. He took me to a small home office. On the wall, framed, was an old photo. It was me, young, in front of my restaurant on opening day. I didn't even know he had that photo. I put it here to remind myself every day where I came from, and to remind myself that dignity has no price. I hugged my son, crying freely now. I love you, son. I've always loved you, even when I hurt you, he said. I know, Mom, and I love you too. I'm sorry it took me so long to show it properly. The following months were about rebuilding. Caleb continued sending the monthly reports, but now they came accompanied by messages. Sometimes a good morning, boss. Sometimes a thanks for everything, small gestures that meant the world. In March, he called me, excited. Mom, remember that financial planning course I mentioned? I got accepted. I start next week. I felt pride flood my chest. That's wonderful, honey. It's a 6-month course. I want to really understand how to manage money, how to evaluate investments. I never want to fall for a scam again. I'm very proud of you. Mom, there's something I want to propose to you. What? When I finish the course, I want to teach you too. I want us to sit down together, and I'll show you how to make your money work better. Nothing risky, just safe investments. What do you think? I was touched. He wanted to give back the knowledge, to take care of me the same way I took care of him. I would love that. In May, Caleb finished the course with honors. We set a Saturday for him to teach me. He arrived with a presentation prepared on his laptop charts, detailed explanations. He spent the whole afternoon showing me investment options, explaining risks, teaching me to diversify. Look, Mom, this one here is conservative treasury bonds. Low yield, but safe. This one here has a bit more risk, like an index fund, but the return is better. And this one here, I would never recommend. It's the kind of stuff I fell for. We invested part of my money together. Nothing risky, everything planned. And for the first time, I felt in real control of my finances. Thanks for teaching me, son. Thanks for letting me teach you, Mom. You trusted me again, even after everything. In June, I received the last mandatory monthly report. 2 years had passed since the contract. His obligations were fulfilled. He had paid back 75% of the loan. His finances were solid, no more toxic debt. I called him. Caleb, your contract is up. You're free, I know, but I want to continue sending you the reports, if you want. Not out of obligation, but because it helps me maintain discipline, and because I like your opinion. I felt a lump in my throat. I do want that. Very much. In August, he called me with news. Mom, I got an offer. A competitor wants to hire me. The salary is 40% higher than what I make now. And are you going to accept? I don't know. I came to ask for your opinion. We talked for hours. We analyzed pros and cons. It wasn't just about money, but about quality of life, company values, career path. I think you should accept, I said finally. It's a serious company. The challenge is good, and you're ready. Are you sure? I'm sure. You aren't that impulsive man from 2 years ago anymore. You learned to evaluate, to think, to plan. I trust you. He was silent for a moment. Do you know why those words mean so much to me? Because when you say you trust me, it's not just lip service. You proved you trust me by teaching me to be trustworthy. I'm going to accept the offer. And he accepted. The new job brought more financial stability. But Caleb didn't go back to his old habits. He continued controlling expenses, investing intelligently, living within his means. In October, he showed up with a box of documents. Mom, I brought all the payment receipts for the loan. Only the last installment is missing, which is due next month. But I came to ask you something. What is it? Do you remember the restaurant? That place that was your dream? Of course. I sold it to pay for your education. I know. And I spent the last few months investigating. The restaurant that took over the space closed a year ago. The current owner is looking to sell the location, I thought. I thought we could buy it back. Together, I put in the last part I owe you plus an extra portion. You put in whatever you want. And we reopen it. You commanding the kitchen, me handling the administration. What do you say? I was speechless. My restaurant, my dream that I had sacrificed for him. And he wanted to give it back to me. Caleb, are you sure? It's a lot of money, I'm sure. I learned that a good investment isn't just one that gives a financial return. It's one that gives a return for the soul. And seeing you happy again, doing what you love, that's worth more than any stock on the market. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. In December, we reopened Eleanor's table. The renovation was done with care, keeping the essence of the place, but modernizing what was necessary. Caleb handled all the administrative parts: permits, contracts, suppliers. I took care of the menu, the recipes, the soul of the place. On the day of the grand reopening, we invited only close people. Mr. Henderson was there, emotional. Some old employees who worked with me in the past came. Sarah helped with the decorations, and Caleb, my son, was at the door, welcoming each person, beaming with pride. Welcome to Eleanor's table, the best restaurant in the city, run by the best cook in the world, my mom. When I served the first dish, an elderly lady tasted it and sighed. This flavor is unique. Nobody makes it the same. Caleb, who was passing by the table, stopped and smiled. It's true. And it's not just the seasoning in the food that's special. It's the seasoning of love she puts into everything she does. At night, when we closed up, it was just the two of us organizing the kitchen. Mom, can I ask you a question? Of course. Did you forgive me? Truly? For that day of the party? For everything? I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. I forgave you, son. I forgave you because you didn't just apologize. You changed, and because I understood that sometimes you need to get things very wrong to get them truly right. I never want to hurt you again. You will hurt me again, and I will hurt you too, because we're human. But now we have something we didn't have before: honesty and respect. He hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on me, for being tough when it was needed, for teaching me that true love sometimes needs to hurt to heal. I looked around my kitchen. The restaurant I loved recovered. The son I love transformed, and me, a 68-year-old woman who learned that it's never too late to set boundaries, to value oneself, to demand respect. You know, Caleb, that day you told me the party was yesterday, and you had forgotten to tell me. It was the worst day of my life. But it was also the day that saved me. What do you mean? It saved me from continuing to be invisible, from continuing to accept crumbs of attention. It forced me to remember that I have value, that I deserve respect. If you hadn't hurt me so much, I never would have reacted. I never would have drawn up that contract. I never would have forced you to grow. So you're saying it was good? No, it was horrible. It hurt a lot. But the pain taught me to love myself more, to not accept less than I deserve. And it taught you to be a better man. We left the restaurant together. The night was starry. We walked to his car. Mom, you know the invitation to live with us still stands, right? The house has a room just waiting for you. I smiled. I know, and I appreciate it. But I like my independence. I like my space. We can be close without living together. I know. I just wanted you to know you always have a place. I know, son. And that's what matters, knowing I have it. He drove me home. When I arrived, I took a shower, put on my comfortable pajamas, and sat on the porch with a tea. I looked at the stars and thought about everything that had happened in the last 2 years. It had started with humiliation. A son who was ashamed of his mother. A cruel oversight that tore my heart apart. But from that pain, transformation was born. I learned to value myself. I learned to set boundaries. I learned that true love isn't permissiveness. It's having the courage to be firm when necessary. And Caleb learned too. He learned about responsibility, about consequences, about humility. He learned that success isn't measured by appearances, but by character. He learned that family isn't something you discard when it's inconvenient and look for when you're in need. It's something you cultivate, honor, and value every day. I grabbed my cell phone and saw a text from him that had arrived a few minutes ago. Good night, Mom. Thanks for another incredible day. I love you so much. You're my hero. I replied. Good night, son. I love you too. Very proud of you. Sleep well. I put the phone away and looked at the sky again. Tomorrow the restaurant would open again. There would be new customers, new challenges. But now I wasn't alone. I had a real partner, a son who had finally learned the value of the mother who was always by his side. Life had given me a second chance, not just to have my restaurant back, but to have my son back. The son I always dreamed of having. Present, respectful, a companion, and it all started when I had the courage to say no, when I had the courage to set boundaries, when I had the courage to value myself. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is being firm. It's saying no when everything in you wants to say yes. It's establishing consequences when everything in you just wants to protect. Because true love isn't doing everything for the person, it's helping them grow, even if the growth hurts. I went inside and went to sleep. For the first time in years, I slept in complete peace. The peace of someone who knows their worth. The peace of someone who fought and won. The peace of someone who recovered not just a dream, but a relationship. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left you with your mouth open. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos that I don't upload here. I'll see you there.